hello there. Welcome to Scripture Shared. I'm David Horton, one of the pastors here at St. Luke's, lead pastor of our Gethsemane campus, joined today by my friend, Reverend Colin Bagby. Thanks for being here, Colin.
Yeah, good to be here.
Colin's our newest pastor here at St. Luke's over our new modern worship community. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to have this conversation.
Amen. So friends, we are in a section of John that I confess I've read many times and didn't really fully understand. Had to do a lot of further research for this one. Let's dive in. We're here in John chapter 7. So Jesus is up in Galilee, home turf. In the Gospel of John, he goes down to Jerusalem for festivals many times over a 3-year period. This time, his brothers, his biological brothers, want to go with him. And Jesus says, no, I don't want you to come with me. Why?
Yeah, it's a good question. And likewise, it is unfamiliar to me as well. But this question of timing is really important to John, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus is it's not my time to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's always your time to go. But he knows the question they're asking him, if you really cared about this message getting out at all, you would go out there and stand on the highest peak and have the loudest voice and pass out flyers and make yourself really famous or whatever. And he resists that because he knows, as the Gospel of John has this shadow of the cross over it the entire time, that his peak of fame is him being crucified. And it's not time to do that yet. And he's quizzical about it. There's kind of a mystery to it here of you don't understand. That's not the purpose. Yeah, of course I have this role to play, but it's not yet. And so, he said, when I'm lifted up, it draws people to me. We hear all that in John's gospel. And this, maybe their question, I kind of read it as a misunderstanding of what he's saying there. When he's saying, I'm going to be lifted up, okay, cool. Go lift yourself up.
We want to lift you up, bro.
And they don't get it. They don't know that lifting up means to be on a cross and to die.
Yeah.
And so he's now is not the time. That's how I read it anyway. So,
I find myself going, okay, what if Jesus was my big brother?
Yeah.
What if he actually was my big brother? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't I want to give him a bigger platform?
Right.
And I love what you're saying, that he knows the only platform he needs is the cross.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they don't know that.
Yeah. They're kind of saying go be Jesus wasn't the only rabbi at this time. They're saying go be the most famous rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
There's other rabbis out there. If you have something to share, go be the best one. And it doesn't say here that James is one of these brothers, but I kind of like to imagine that. You said, wouldn't you want your older brother to have this platform? I think that's for me one of the greatest apologetics for Jesus and his mission is that James, presumably one of these brothers telling him this, then sees how it actually plays out, goes on to become this communicator of the gospel.
He
figures it out.
Yeah.
And he was one of these people go do this. And then he sees how it pans out. And then he becomes, the writer of this favorite letter of the New Testament. So, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Even these guys can change.
Yeah, right. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So he makes his way to Jerusalem. He doesn't go with his brothers who kind of want to lift him up in a way he doesn't want to be lifted up. But he does go with his disciples. Yeah. He goes for one of the 3 major pilgrimage festivals of Jews in this time. If you were able to do it, you had to go to these 3 festivals, one of them being the Festival of Booths, which we see here. He makes it to the temple, starts to preach in the temple. And some people, John says in chapter 7, see him as good. Other people see him as deceiving.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you, so how could someone look at Jesus and go, well, he's deceiving?
Yeah.
How could that be?
Yeah, you look in John's gospel in particular, the people that come to Jesus, and there's one of 2 reactions. There's kind of this either or nature of responses to Jesus's teaching and preaching. And it's either full embrace or it's physical embodied turning away and walking away.
Yeah.
So this says that he's either a good teacher, he's deceiving. Some translations say you're leading people astray, you're setting them on the wrong path. It's kind of this idea of single-minded devotion, for the Pharisees, for instance, and then for Jesus. And that's the decision, devotion to me, which is scandalous, or devotion to Moses, as they kind of frame it here. And so to lead them astray, to be you're leading us away from the faith that we received. They talk about Moses. He gave us the law. He's the person we're supposed to follow. And now you're saying it's you. That would be that would be a deceiving preacher. You're taking us off course from our original kind of exemplary religious person. There's Moses, he gave us the law. Why would we follow you? That's deceiving.
It almost gives you, I love that. It gives you actually an appreciation for the people who said no.
Yeah.
Because they're actually trying to live with integrity.
Yeah.
They want to be true to who they are, right? And they see, well, if I go this way, I have to change everything about myself. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Right. And it also makes you go, wow, well, signing up for Jesus really is an all or nothing deal.
Yeah. I resonate with that too, that like, I'm a religious person, obviously, to then immediately be confronted with somebody who's saying it leads ultimately to this.
Yes.
Like I kind of would see myself like, that's kind of deceiving. Like this is not what I've been taught. This is not what I received. This is not part of my family history. It's really integrated into a family, and it'd be shocking and troubling, and it would make you want to ignore it or walk away or not consider it good, at least.
Our student ministries director, Rob Delaney, he tells this amazing story where he was leading a confirmation class. And he said, this is just one of my biggest wins. At least I think I'm getting this right. He said, this is one of my biggest wins in ministry is that we got all the way to the end of this long confirmation journey when these young people get a chance to say yes or no to the faith. And this young woman just stood up and said, no.
Yeah.
No. I've done all my homework. I've done this deep dive, and I just can't give this a joyful all in yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And he said, I really respect that. That means that our confirmation class actually did its job.
Yeah.
It helped her make that decision.
Yeah.
We hope that she makes a different decision.
Sure.
Still.
Yeah.
But you see this picture in John that what Jesus is looking for is that all in joyful yes.
Not yes with like your fingers crossed behind your back or like maybe tomorrow or like on Tuesdays I'll go for it, on Wednesdays maybe not. It's all in.
And going back to his brothers, right? So they're not totally all in.
Yeah.
And that he's like, that doesn't help me.
Yeah.
I need all in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So let's go to the end of the Festival of Booths. So I'm here in John chapter 7, verse 37. So Jesus has been preaching during the Festival of Booths, which is a 7-day long festival. Kind of like a foreshadowing of Holy Week when he's preaching in the festival for 7 days. And something actually I didn't know until I was preparing for this is that at the end of the Festival of Booths, the priests would have this big celebration, and they would walk around the altar in front of the temple 7 times, and they would pour water from the pool of Siloam, from this pool that fed the Temple Mount, and they would pour it onto the altar as an offering to God. And so here Jesus says in verse 37, let anyone who is thirsty come to me, and let the one who believes in me drink. And so, now I understand. When he says, I'm living waters.
Yeah.
There's this festival going on. There's this like ritual going on. See that water? That's me.
Yeah.
That's me. So what does it mean that Jesus is this living water?
Yeah. What immediately comes to mind for me is, the hearers of this would have thought also of like Isaiah and Ezekiel. They're like, they have these images and these visions of God's salvation being water. Like Ezekiel's even, it's so beautiful, this water rushing out of the door of the temple. And Jesus is saying like that salvation that is abundant and pouring out. Like the Festival of Booths is a celebration of God's, overwhelming provision for his people. And it's celebrated in this water pouring out. Jesus is saying, I'm the culmination of that abundance. Like God's pouring out of himself culminates in me, and it comes through me. The salvation comes through me. So they see this image in their mind. Remember Isaiah, remember Ezekiel, this water rushing out, and that's God's provision for us. Jesus is saying, that's me in the flesh.
Gives you a sense of abundance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is, John, he'll say later on in the gospel, I've come to give abundant life.
Yeah. And he's not just full of the water, he's the source of it. Yeah.
Let's spend a few minutes kind of with what people may be most familiar with in our reading. So moving on to chapter 8, it's right as the Festival of Booths is closing. Folks are still hanging around Jerusalem for the after party, essentially. And the Pharisees bring a woman, and the scribes bring a woman whom they say they have caught in the act of adultery. and they tell. Well, you tell the story. What happened?
She's been caught in adultery, and they want to present her to Jesus to trick him, to catch him in something. And there's a lot of layers here of they want to make him be the bad guy, so catch him in that way. They know that also with Roman authority, they're not actually allowed to stone this person, but they're going to see if Jesus, if he actually follows the law, if he is this religious person, that if he says yes, then he's actually breaking Roman laws. So they're trying to set a lot of traps for him, and he does something amazing and remarkable. Is this? I kind of imagine this. People say, like, what did he write in the sand? But also, he reaches down. There was a moment of tension, like, is he going to pick up a stone? Then he writes something. It doesn't say explicitly what he writes.
Yeah.
But then says famously, let he who's without sin cast the first stone, basically putting them to the test. Like, if you're sinless, you do it. And then it says, in order of oldest to youngest, they begin to walk away because they know that they don't have the right to do it. And so it kind of frees her from that. But then in her freedom from their condemnation, and then from Jesus's condemnation, he says, now go on and don't sin. And kind of gives her this new freedom.
Why do you think he writes in the sand?
There's a lot of theories about it. I've never been married to one. One that I think is interesting. There's a lot of instances in John's gospel of Jesus knowing things that he shouldn't know, or he knows people deeply, or he has knowledge of them and they have knowledge of him. Is that maybe he wrote her name and all of those scribes and Pharisees' names in the sand? So, like, I know you. Like, don't say that you're without sin. I know who you are. There's kind of this moment of identity. Maybe he just kind of doodled or something. It's just kind of just hanging for time. But I kind of like that in this moment right now, that he wrote their names, that he knows her and he knows them, and then likewise they know who he is and what he knows, and so that's kind of where I'm at. What do you think?
I mean, there's definitely precedent for that, right? Where with the woman at the well, Jesus knows her things, knows what she has done in her life, and he can point that out in her, just like he can point it out in them. There's another interpretation where he's like with his finger drawing, and it's like he's drawing a new law, kind of like how God draws draws with God's own finger. The laws of Moses.
Right.
He's here inhabiting the role of a new Moses, drawing on that. This new law is, we don't stone people.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Another favorite interpretation is this idea that, I love what you said, that instead of reaching for a stone, he essentially finger paints, which is this kind of weird thing.
Yeah, plays in the dirt.
But it de-escalates the situation.
Yeah.
Here you have these guys who are escalating the situation. Let's go to blows here, right? And he isn't going to play that game. I'm going to make peace. I'm going to de-escalate. I'm just going to finger paint. Right? Just crazy as it sounds. I'm going to take things down a notch.
Yeah. And then there's another point here too of they're using this woman to make a point. That's her only purpose for them. Is like, we want to make a point. We want to trap Jesus or whatever. Then she doesn't matter to them. And then Jesus, in that kind of turning it over, says that she matters and that also they all matter. Like, kind of convicts them of their sin, and they go away walking away, probably frustrated, but also, I mean, I imagine their thoughts in that moment, like, he's right. I have some things that I haven't dealt with. I have some things that I'm carrying. I was going to use this woman to make this point, and I wasn't turning inwardly to think of what's going on in myself. And so, it turns from this, public debate to, people matter, that they have souls, they're of value, each of them, the woman and each of the men that have brought her to Jesus. So,
it's beautiful.
Well, thank you guys for reading along and for sharing your own thoughts. And as you continue, or about halfway through, as you continue in the next several weeks, we hope that in your reading, in your prayers, and your struggling, that God meets you in the text, and that as you read Scripture together, you grow in your following of Jesus. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.